Welcome to Podcast, the Business of Dentistry podcast, brought to you by Practice Plan. Podcast delivers the best business advice, real-life stories, and practical hints and tips to make your practice a more profitable and sustainable business. And now, here's your host.
Hello and welcome to Practice Plan's podcast. With me today, I'm delighted to say, is Team Performance Specialist Mark Topley.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Thank you very much. Good to have you here. So there might be some people who haven't heard of you, Mark. I very much doubt that there are many. However, it's probably always a good idea for you to introduce yourself and tell people a bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I help people to get the very, very best from their teams. I think the team is an absolutely fantastic resource. The people that we rub shoulders with day to day, and too often people get stuck in the weeds with team members that don't quite, pull their weight, or team members that could do better, but everybody has the potential to really contribute positively. And so what I do is work with owners and managers to help them to unlock the potential of their team. And usually that starts with them and building their leadership skills, but that's not the only thing that we do. So yeah, it's helping people to get the very most out of their team so they get exceptional team performance.
Yeah, and dentists are trained to be dentists, aren't they? Not business owners. So they all probably benefit, or a lot of them would benefit from this kind of help, I'm sure. Now, the reason that we're having a chat today is because you are introducing a new boot camp. You've already got your Great Boss boot camp, haven't you? But I believe that you're going to be starting a Practice Manager Bootcamp. So what's the thinking behind this?
Well, the practice manager and the principal are the two key people in any leadership team in the practice. And for a long time, I've had practice managers on my boot camp, and I've seen the transformative effect it can have on them, mainly in terms of confidence. Knowing that they're doing it right, because they all think they're doing it wrong. They've all got imposter syndrome. And primarily because most practice managers step up from either a lead nurse role or front of house or something else, but without any kind of training on how to go about being a leader. Now, as I've said, the key to team performance is leadership. You can work as hard as you like, but if you don't know how to lead people, then the potential of the business is going to be severely limited, and you're basically going to burn yourself out. And that's where most people kind of sit. But by unlocking a few key skills and starting with leadership identity, it's interesting because I'm just running a small cohort through at the moment, and overwhelmingly the response to the first module has been, "I'm actually all right, aren't I? I can do this."
Yeah.
It was good to touch base with who I am as a person and what's important to me. And that's what I want people to do, is to realize that they've got this. They can absolutely do it. They learn a few skills, build their confidence, work with us in the community, and then, over time become exceptional practice managers.
Must be quite rewarding for you to see and hear that kind of thing.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I love my job, Hazel, because every week I get to speak to people who are like, "Oh, it's made such a difference. It's made such a huge difference. I feel so much different. I feel so," and I'm like, well, I thought, I thought it was obvious, but that's only because, I've been through the mill, 25, 6+ years of, of leading teams, a lot of it on my own, very much in the beginning, making it up as I went along, leaning on, friends like Chris Barrow and others, and mentors and coaches, and kind of learning the hard way. I guess I've kind of built up that experience and knowledge of what to do and what not to do. So now it's just an absolute delight. I was chatting to a principal yesterday who, he's in his mid-30s. He's very highly strung. Now, this is interesting. He's ex-special forces in his youth, before he trained to be a dentist, one of those really bright ones. And he's been very, very stressed out. And he came on the call yesterday and waved his phone at me and said, "Look at my blood pressure." He said, "I haven't had blood pressure like that since I was a 15-year-old and I was an athlete." And I'm like, Okay, so your stress levels improve then. So it's brilliant. I really enjoy my job, and I really enjoy seeing people get the results that they deserve.
So it's the fact that I suppose you saw a need for this new course because quite as you say, quite a lot of practice managers are just basically dropped in it, aren't they? There's no training, no formal training for them or anything like that. So as well as their own leadership style, what other things are you covering on the course?
So we start with the leadership identity, as I've said.
Mm.
The second thing we do is we look at how do you engage the team with words. So what words can you use that will not motivate people, because motivation is a bit of a myth.
Mm.
Motivation comes from action. You only get action when you inspire people. So how do you inspire people? So we take them through an exercise to identify what is it that the practice that they work in does that makes a difference. What does it make difference does it make for the patient? And sometimes that's about confidence, sometimes it's about getting function back, sometimes it's aesthetics. It's a variety of different things, but there'll be one key thing that the practice does that they can all kind of gather around. So we take them through a process to do that. Once we've been through that layer, then we look at culture. So culture is values translated into action.
Yeah.
So once we've looked at values, it's like, well, how do we live that on a day-to-day basis? What are our non-negotiables? And then what are the rhythms, the decisions, and the transitions in our practice life, and how are we going to mark those? So
Mm.
we look at that, and then we move on to recruitment and retention. So we look at how do you recruit a modern day values driven person, because that's who you want, because you can
Yeah.
train skills but you can't train values. So how do you identify the right people? How do you bring them in? How do you onboard them? And how do you make that first 6 months a success? Because 40% of people that leave in the first 6 months do so because they weren't trained and they weren't onboarded properly. So we want to make that right. So that's the next thing that we do. And then we move into a whole suite of things around communication, trust building, difficult conversations, challenging people. And then the final piece that we do is how to delegate and deploy to your team. So, not how to give jobs away, but how to empower a whole range of people so that they own their areas of the job, because you've got the standards you can bring them back to. They know what the cultural framework is, and everything kind of builds layer on layer over the 5 months that we do it.
Wow, that sounds really very interesting and wide ranging. So, I mean, hard, cash. What sort of return would people see on their investment in this course?
Well, I think the key thing to think about is what would happen in your practice if you managed to get your team to work 10-15% better.
Mm.
Now, all of the evidence points to the fact that when we do this sort of thing, and the leader steps up, the leader gets more skills. The ripple effect of that is that and when I work one to one with practices on this, we see about an 8 to 15% increase in turnover on a monthly basis within the first 3 months.
Wow.
So on a 5-month investment like this, where you're investing the time and the expertise, you can expect to see a significant improvement in turnover because people are now working together. So
Mm.
the key, people often think that you generate more revenue by bringing more patients in, but that's not the way that you do it. The key levers to pull on are how does each person act in the patient journey? How engaged are they in the process? How much trust is built? And so therefore, how much more likely are people to accept help when you give it to them?
Yeah.
How many mistakes are they making? Because that's costing you money as well. So there's a significant return there in financial terms. The big one for me is that people get time back. They're not doing everything themselves, and then that has a knock-on effect with home life.
Yeah.
And then that means that you show up at work not frazzled. You're grounded. You've had your rest. You've had your time with your family, and I don't really think you can put a price on that.
No. No. Yeah. Investment is a not necessarily a financial word, is it? Or return is not
Mhm.
necessarily purely financial. Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely.
So who what sort of practices? What sort of practice managers do you think would benefit from this kind of thing?
Well, I've had, gosh, the over 150 people we've had through the course already and about 25% of those will be practice managers. Huge range. So people that weren't even practice managers yet, that were stepping up into the role.
All
And a
right.
very smart, forward-thinking boss said, right, let's get you ready. We've had people that are fresh in the role and kind of drinking from a fire hose, and they're like, oh my gosh, what have I let myself in for?
Yeah.
We've had people that have had real expertise in other areas. So I've had a couple of people who were nurse trainers. So they came from education.
Mm.
Now they knew all of the compliance stuff. They knew about people, but it was like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? They've really succeeded as well. And I've also had people that have been doing it for a long time and have just kind of got stuck. So I've got a couple of people on my course at the moment who, are like 20 years in practice management. Um, and they just, and I think this is one of the things that people find when you get later into your career, because the gap between you and the people that are coming in at the earlier end is that
Yeah.
much greater.
Mm.
And as you and I have talked about before, the gaps between generations now are massive in terms of
Mm.
expectations. And so it's helping them to understand, how do you inspire and bring that group of 20 somethings with you when you're late 40s, early 50s. And it's like none of all the stuff you did when you were in your early career, it don't work anymore.
No, it just everything moves on, doesn't it? And can leave you behind. That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a way of staying current then as well, really, for some people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And because the beauty of the boot camp is that you've got the materials for life. And so I've got a couple of people. One of the lovely things about running boot camps, when I run my own ones, is that we have alumni that are allowed to come back in. So they pay a membership fee and they can come back in on the course. And when they come back in, seeing them go through the refresher is really encouraging. And they say, oh yeah, I went back and looked at that other module again. So I think that material's always there for them, and so you can be refreshed. But I think the key thing for me is that if you're leading a team of people, you are essentially a very leaky bucket, because people will kind of like pull on you from every direction, and unless you're constantly getting input, either through reading or watching stuff or chatting to people or coaching, then you're going to dry up very, very quickly. And, that's not a nice place to be, because people will still pull on you, but you've got nothing to give. So refresher, constant development, look at it as CPD for leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe that there's going to be an offer to practice plan practices as well, that they can get a reduction.
A massive reduction. So yes, so basically we're going to be running cohorts through 2026. I think the first one starts around about April, and for practice plan members, there's going to be a deal. So it'd be £99 a month, including VAT,
Mm.
for 5 months.
Wow.
And that's a massive reduction on what you would get if you were coming to me, as Joe Public or
Yeah.
Joanne Public.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds brilliant. So come on, what's your final sales pitch for someone who might be thinking about it and thinking, will I really get my money back?
Well, I'll paraphrase one of the practice managers that was on my course last year, and I said, what would you say to someone who's thinking about doing this? And she said, do you know what? I'd say definitely go for it. When I came to you, I was not in a good place. I was wrung out, and what was helpful for me immediately was to see that I wasn't on my own, that other people had the same issues, and it was the community, as well as the coaching and as well as the content, but it was the community that really saw her through that difficult period.
Mm.
So whatever kind of place you're in, this is going to help you. And I would encourage you to dip your toe in the water, get in on the inside, see what it's like, and see for yourself.
Brilliant. How could they refuse? That's great. Thank you very much for spending the time with Mark. It's always great to chat to you.
You too. Thanks, Hazel.